Gavin Newsom threatens prosecutions as Trump fight turns explosive. Newsom's election threat looks less like democracy and more like panic. Gavin Newsom's threat to criminalize ballot seizures before election results are certified is being sold as a defense of democracy. But the timing, tone, and target make it look like something else as well. A California governor using election law to sharpen his national feud with Donald Trump. Newsom says California must stop election interference, intimidation, and unauthorized seizure of ballots. On paper, that sounds reasonable. No serious democracy should allow rogue officials, political operatives, or federal agents to grab ballots without lawful authority. But the problem is not the surface claim. The problem is the political machinery around it. Newsom's own 4th of July message framed the legislation directly against Trump, accused him of threatening democracy, and wrapped the proposal in the language of resistance. That turns a technical election security measure into a national political weapon. Why this matters. The significance is that Newsom is moving the Trump fight from speeches and lawsuits into criminal law. His proposal would make it a felony to seize ballots before certification, while California's existing election protection law already restricts unauthorized law enforcement access to voter lists, voter rolls, and voting technology. That means California is creating a legal wall around its election system, just as Trump and his allies continue to argue that aggressive scrutiny is needed to stop fraud. Newsom calls that protection. Trump's side will call it obstruction. This is the danger. Once politicians start defining election interference through partisan suspicion, every enforcement decision becomes explosive. A Republican sheriff, federal agent, election observer, or investigator could be accused of interfering with democracy. A Democrat official could be accused of using the law to block scrutiny. Newsom wants to look like the adult in the room, but he is also choosing the most inflammatory possible frame: California versus Trump, democracy versus dictatorship, law versus MAGA. That may thrill Democratic activists, but it also gives Trump an obvious opening: how Trump will react. Trump's reaction is likely to be immediate and brutal. He will almost certainly argue that Newsom is trying to criminalize election oversight because California Democrats do not want their vote-by-mail system questioned. The pro-Trump case writes itself. Trump can say Newsom is not protecting democracy, he is protecting a democratic machine. He can argue that if California elections are clean, officials should welcome scrutiny rather than threaten prosecution. He can also frame the measure as another example of Democrats using courts, prosecutors, and legal threats when they fear losing political control. This does not mean Trump's claims about California elections are automatically correct. But politically, Newsom has handed him a simple message. They want to arrest people who check the ballots. That line will travel. It is sharper than Newsom's legal explanation. It fits Trump's long-running argument that Democrats use institutions to protect themselves. It will also energize Republican voters who already distrust California's election system. Could there be false arrests? The risk is not that the law automatically creates false arrests. The risk is overreach. A narrowly written law that punishes unlawful ballot seizure after clear evidence and court review is defensible. A broadly used law that treats aggressive election scrutiny as criminal interference would be far more dangerous. False arrests could happen if officials interpret interference too loosely, apply the law selectively, or use prosecution threats to deter lawful oversight. That would be politically disastrous and legally vulnerable. It would let Trump argue that Newsom's real aim is not election integrity, but intimidation. The strongest safeguard would be clear wording, court order requirements, transparent enforcement standards, and strict separation between political rhetoric and prosecution decisions. Without that, every investigation becomes a partisan battlefield. Newsom's problem is that he has blurred the line himself. By making Trump the villain of the announcement, he has made it harder for voters to see this as neutral lawmaking. Is this unprecedented? It is not unprecedented for states to regulate elections. States set election procedures, protect ballots, punish intimidation, and restrict unauthorized access to voting systems. California has every right to protect its own election infrastructure within constitutional limits. What is more unusual is the direct political framing. Newsom is not simply saying California will protect ballots. He is saying California must protect ballots from Trump and his allies. That matters because election law depends on public confidence. When a governor announces criminal penalties while attacking a president by name, supporters see courage, but opponents see pretext. The law may be legitimate, yet the presentation makes it look partisan. This is where Newsom overplays his hand. He could have framed the proposal as a neutral protection against any unauthorized actor, Republican or Democrat, federal or local. Instead, he turned it into another episode in his personal Trump war. Is this to help him win? Newsom cannot run again for California governor because he is term limited. So this is not about helping him win another gubernatorial race, but it is absolutely about his future. Newsom is widely viewed as a potential 2028 presidential contender, and he has been building a national profile by positioning himself as one of the Democratic Party's loudest anti-Trump figures. The election interference threat fits that brand perfectly. It lets him appear tough, dramatic, and central to the national story. It gives him a battlefield bigger than California. It also lets him speak to Democratic voters who want a fighter, not a manager. That is the cynical reading, and it is difficult to dismiss. Newsom is not merely governing here. He is auditioning. Is Newsom's popularity declining? Newsom's popularity picture is not simple. Statewide, Peak found that 50% of California adults and 54% of likely voters approved of his job performance in May 2026. That is not collapse. But the warning signs are real. In Orange County, a politically important and more competitive part of California, UCI found Newsom at 38% approval and 55% disapproval. Independents rated him poorly, and Republicans were overwhelmingly negative. That matters because Newsom's national ambitions require more than deep blue applause. If he wants to become a serious presidential contender, he must show he can speak beyond California Democrats. His current strategy does the opposite. It excites the anti-Trump base while reinforcing the Republican view that he is a polished, ambitious, partisan operator. Trump will see that weakness immediately. He will not treat Newsom as a defender of democracy. He will treat him as a struggling California liberal, trying to turn legal threats into a presidential launchpad. The pro-Trump case. The pro-Trump argument is not that election materials should be seized unlawfully. They should not be. Ballots need chain of custody, lawful process, and clear rules. The pro-Trump argument is that Newsom's version of election protection looks selective, theatrical, and politically loaded. It threatens criminal punishment in a state already dominated by Democrats, while presenting Trump supporters as the danger before any specific offense has occurred. That is bad politics and risky governance. A democracy should protect ballots from tampering, but it should also protect citizens from officials who treat skepticism as sedition. Newsom wants to look like he is defending the republic. But by wrapping a criminal law proposal in anti-Trump rhetoric, he has given Trump the stronger counterattack. California Democrats are not just afraid of election interference. They are afraid of who might be watching.